Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to our Tech Tuesday. It's becoming an exciting event. Volume keeps picking up, including the background noises. Very quickly, my name is Denis, as probably many of you know. I'm with IBM, and I'm also the chairman of IT Cork, and proudly so. A lot of things have happened over the last year, last couple of months. I think we've really accelerated from a strategy and results standpoint, and we're making an impact regionally as well as globally and nationally. And I'm quite proud of that. Part of our strategy, from a macro standpoint, was to deliver thought leadership, collaboration, and strategic alliances that would make a difference for the region from a job creation and networking standpoint. Some of the things that we've done that you probably know about is our Innovation That Matters segment, which is sending Nixitel, who won that award, to Chicago on a trade mission. We've also have a program called E3, which is moving and is aligned with the great things that Bill's doing with Coderdojo and here that we're going to talk about tonight. And that's to excite, educate, and engage secondary and university children more on the IT space. And that's starting to grow momentum. And we're going to have things like Adopt a School and things of that nature, which I think will help. We're also, from a web portal standpoint, I want to thank Ronan Murphy and Smarttech and his team. The next month or two, I might already be pushing the envelope a little bit there on, but we will be having a new web portal, which will be state-of-the-art, have a lot more collaboration, and will make a real difference, and we're really excited about that. And also Tech Tuesday, I think it's really started to gain momentum. We have more and more volume of people coming. We have more and more networking happening. And what's really exciting about it, in the beginning I was being the loud gang saying, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do this. And very slowly the committee has started to take over more and more, from Kean and Ronan and folks like that. And now the topics have become organic. So people from the committee and from the audience yourselves are starting to talk about topics and wanting to speak and wanting to sponsor. And that was a very important part of our strategy, and probably the last piece that we needed to make sure we're engaging with the indigenous population, the SMEs, and promoting networking to make a difference. So we're really proud of that, and I think that also leads into the IT skills gap issue. It's one of the final things I want to talk about, which I think is also pertinent to what Bill, some of the folks are doing. We do have a serious issue in this country. It's a good problem and it's a bad problem. The good problem is the IT industry is robust. It's making a difference to the bottom line in Ireland, and we need to continue to promote that. It's important for the multinationals, it's important for the universities, it's important for the SMEs. So, the more we help in that arena, the better. The collaborative model that we've developed from an IT Cork standpoint, which is combining an industry-led organization with SMEs, with academia, with public sector and government, is driving a difference, and we can't push that. The government came out with 2 reports recently, which were exceptional, by the way. I encourage you to read them. They're out on our LinkedIn site. And one was identifying what the IT skills gaps are, as well as some plans for conversion, as well as new programs like the MSc program and CIT, which will be important from a pipeline standpoint. So, and I want to mention that IT Cork was acknowledged in both reports as contributors to that. So we've had discussions with Forfast and other governments, so we are making an impact on a national level at this point, which is important to acknowledge. So we have a committee that's going to be led by Anthony O'Mara from Trend Micro, who will help drive a regional result for the skills gap, a short-term, a mid-term, and a long-term plan. Because it's one thing to talk about the gaps, it's another thing to talk about the things that you need to do, but as we all know in business, if you don't execute that result and measure it and track it, it doesn't mean anything. So we're really excited about that and look for more in that space. So we're very excited about that. Finally, I also want to mention our conference is coming up May 29th, which is the Accelerating Roadmap for Success, all the things that we've done. We have sponsorships are still available. We have Cork County Council, Cork City Council, Enterprise Ireland, the Examiner, KPMG, Berkeley, EMC, IBM, Hibernia, Avos, and Cumas. So the buzz is starting, there's more opportunities there, we are making a difference. And that's a perfect segue now also to turn this over to Mike, and as well as mention the wonderful location we have here with the NSC. We have a lot of locations across the region and talent, which we're trying to support and acknowledge and promote. That's one of the things we're doing from our organization tonight. We're here in the NSC, which is a great location. There's wonderful stuff going on that Bill's doing from Coderdojo, which lines in the IT skills gap long-term play, as well as making a difference to the region. So I'm really excited. I'm proud to be here. I thank you for coming, and I look forward to what we'll accomplish in 2012. I'll turn it over to Mike now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Denis. And on that note, I'm supposed to continue to thank IBM for sponsoring this event. And also Smarttech for recording the event, which will be on YouTube tomorrow. So I urge you to take a look and share that as well with your networks. So today's event is Tech Tuesday for March, and the topic is Coderdojo, Inspiring Our Future. I know you have a brief intro and introduce our main speaker, Bill Liao. But Coderdojo is a movement which is teaching kids how to program, how to develop, how to code. It started last year with James Wilson, who started a computer club in his school. He met with Bill and they started the first dojo upstairs in this room in June 2011. Up until recently, up until this weekend, I think there's 18 dojos now around the world in 4 different countries. And also yesterday, Stephen Fry put out a tweet about Coderdojo. So there could be 18 more dojos by the weekend, as Stephen Fry has almost 4 million fans or followers. So the speaker tonight is Bill. Bill is from Coderdojo. Bill is a serial entrepreneur, investor, philanthropist, speaker. He's resident here in Cork for the last 5 years. What's interesting about Bill and what many people don't know is that Bill doesn't fly. So basically on a small island west of Europe and traveling the world, says a lot about his commitment to Ireland and his commitment to our future. So on that note, I'm going to introduce Bill Liao and get his inspiration from Coderdojo. And it's good to see some of the developers here as well today. Thank you very much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, hello. I want to start with a very simple statement that you may or may not agree with, but I'd like you to consider. I'd like you to consider that the world occurs in language, that context is decisive, and I'd like you to look at, within those two statements, I know this is getting convoluted, what is your personal traction? Because we hear these words traction, in relationship to any startup. You've got to get traction. But very few people actually define what traction is and how you can actually get it. And I would like to give you a few little insights into that today. And they occur within a framework. And the framework is the world occurs in language and context is decisive. So we've got a little segue here. Late last century, a little experiment was done by a psychologist at a university. Stanley Milgram decided he would like to see what effect context has on human beings. So he got a random selection of university students and he randomly separated them into 2 groups, prisoners and wardens. And they set up a fake prison on the campus, and they put the 2 groups into the prison. And they had to call the experiment off after about 48 hours. Because after 48 hours, in that context, the wardens and the prisoners were starting to come to blows. They were starting to act out exactly as the context had decided for them. Now, this is a terrible thing, but it's an interesting thing. It means that you are less free with your will than you might imagine. Because, all these kids going in were just normal college kids. And they ended up being, actually some of them ended up having to go to therapy because context changed who they were being. So context is decisive. The world occurs in language. When you define something as a prison, it becomes a prison. That language has more power than you think. Now, there are a whole lot of people who've spent the last 100 years figuring this out. Most of them are the experts at branding in the world. And they spend all their time trying to figure out how language will affect consumer behaviour. This stuff works. You can look it up. But I want to actually hijack that a little bit and talk about traction. So we've all heard about traction, and if you consider it in the previous context, what does traction mean? It means how many people repeat something that you ask them to do in its simplest form. You know, a lot of people have heard about the thing, minimum viable product. Who's heard of minimum viable product? Oh, 1, 2, 3, a few agile developers here, right? Minimum viable product is often defined as the simplest form of the product that you're going to sell. But I would actually define it again differently. I would define it as that action that you can get a user to reliably repeat. That's the minimum, that's the essence of your product. The thing that happens over and over again. If you can attach an invoice to it, it becomes a business. But the more you see people actually copying the action, the more you have a product, the more traction you have. A lot of our thinking in terms of product design, in terms of getting traction, has been design it first and then they'll come. And that's actually not a great way to develop a product as far as I can see. I think it is better to do a light design and then see what people do with it. And in measuring what people do with it, improve it. So how does this relate to Coderdojo? So when James Welton came to me, it was in my role as an investor. And he said, I've got a startup. And I said, great, because I see a lot of that. And then he said, yeah, I've got 2 programmers who work with me. I said, fantastic. That's actually the first sign I like to see in any startup, that they have a few programmers. And he said, oh, and I can program myself. And I went, that's even better. If I found who can program, this kid's going to go somewhere. And I just asked him offhand, well, how did you learn how to program? And he said, oh, well, I learned in my bedroom. Now, I was kind of familiar with that because I myself, at the age of 12, got my first computer and I learned to program in my bedroom by myself. But then he said something interesting. Now, when you're looking for traction, by the way, it's really useful to get and prove that there's a market. So the thing that James said that was truly fascinating to me was that he said, yeah, I won a web award. Okay, so you had a good product. And the school principal announced it over the PA system. And very quickly, 40 kids came up to me and said, I want to learn to program too. And if you think about it, one random announcement in one random school generates immediately 40 kids worth of traction. That is the best market proof you'll ever have. That just tells you instantly there's a market for this. There's a market to teach kids how to program. It's instantly proved by that. So that told me there was a market, but the other thing that shocked me was when I went home and looked, I could not find any primary or secondary school in this country that was teaching programming to kids. Now, I learned when I was 12, and that's late. And I'm still pretty fluent as a coder, but not anywhere near what James or kids who've learned younger are. If you want to be truly powerful with programming language, you need fluency. To be fluent, you need to learn young. When your mind is at its most plastic, that is the best time to learn languages. This has been well proven. And computer languages are no different to French or Chinese. They have grammar, they have syntax, they have vocabulary. So I'm seeing this fact and I'm thinking, wow, how did I not know this? Well, the fact is I homeschool my kids, so I don't have much exposure to education systems. But I realised there's this big gap. And I soon discovered that it wasn't just in Ireland, actually it's occurring all around the world. Somehow, all of the programming courses that I thought would have continued, you know, there was a bit of programming at my school, all of that stopped. It was just pushed out now to college. I think, you know, MIT invented this rather cute game called Scratch, which is a sort of symbolic programming language, and that's become the proxy for teaching kids programming. But it's not real. You cannot build a real application in Scratch, and so you're stuck in the game world. And so, discovering this, I said to James, well, what did you do? And he said, well, I started a computer club in my school. But now that I'm doing my leading cert and doing my startup, I can't keep the computer club going. And so we kept talking, and I said, look, why don't we generate something out of this that will become a movement? I just want to show you a little piece of video about movements.
So ladies and gentlemen, at TED we talk a lot about leadership and how to make a movement. So let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons from it. First, of course you know, a leader needs the guts to stand out and be ridiculed. But what he's doing is so easy to follow. So here's his first follower with a crucial role. He's going to show everyone else how to follow. Now notice that the leader embraces him as an equal. So now it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Now there he is calling to his friends. Now if you notice that the first follower is actually an underestimated form of leadership in itself. It takes guts to stand out like that. The first follower is what transforms a lone nut into a leader. And here comes a second follower. Now it's not a lone nut, it's not two nuts, 3 is a crowd, and a crowd is news. So a movement must be public. It's important to show not just the leader, but the followers, because you find that new followers emulate the followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, and immediately after, 3 more people. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point. Now we've got a movement. So notice that as more people join in, it's less risky. So those that were sitting on the fence before now have no reason not to. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, but they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. So over the next minute, you'll see all of the those that prefer to stick with the crowd, because eventually they would be ridiculed for not joining in. And that's how you make a movement. But let's recap some lessons from this. So first, if you are the type, like the shirtless dancing guy, that is standing alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals. So it's clearly about the movement, not you. Okay, but we might have missed the real lesson here. The biggest lesson, if you noticed, did you catch it? Is that leadership is over-glorified. That yes, it was the shirtless guy was first, and he'll get all the credit, but it was really the first follower that transformed the lone nut into a leader. So as we're told that we should all be leaders, that would be really ineffective. If you really care about starting a movement, have the courage to follow and show others how to follow. And when you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first one to stand up and join in. And what a perfect place to do that at TED. Thanks.
So when you look at a movement, one of the key points there is also not just the lone nut being turned into a leader, but it's also being easy to follow. And a lot of the time I see people start something, start their business, start up something, and they don't articulate what it is they're doing well. And they expect it to take off, and it doesn't. It gets no traction. Now there's a wonderful book on story called The Poetics. And fortunately for you guys, it's out of copyright for a while now, because it was written by this dude called Aristotle, and his copyright expired a while back. So you can go online and read The Poetics. But I'm going to give you The Poetics in a short version. Every great story has a crisis, a struggle, and a resolution. In a business, the crisis is the pain you solve. The struggle is your stature, what you overcame that proves you're the one to do this. And the resolution is simply how you leave a customer feeling. In Coderdojo's case, the crisis was a whole generation of human beings is growing up only as users of computers and not as creators with. And the context of being a user is very disempowering in a lot of cases, especially with some of the games that are being played. So without having that creative ability, you lose something. You lose some personal power. So that was our crisis. The struggle was simple. We already got a prototype for how to reverse this with James in school. We just needed to codify it. We needed to express it. And we expressed that struggle fairly well. We created a very simple brand that incorporated the two aspects that we wanted. That brand, by the way, was quite a lot of development. It took time. We would not have gotten the traction that we have gotten if we'd stuck with Saturday morning computer club. That just wouldn't have worked. Code Camp also wasn't quite cutting it. But Dojo, where coder is the coolest word we could find for programming, and dojo is a martial arts temple of learning, had just the right mix to both express the brand, but also express how it works in the form of pedagogy. Because in a martial arts dojo, everyone knows that more advanced students will teach beginner students. And that gave us also a wonderful scalability to the system, because it meant that it could be an evergreen course, anyone could join any time, there would always be someone to teach new kids, and everyone had a chance to advance. So in our brand, we also built our pedagogy. We did need some rules, and we thought the simpler we could make the rules, the more it would scale. And so we boiled it down to one rule. Above all, be cool. Now that may not sound like a very strong rule, but I can tell you just the other day in one of the dojos, I found two kids playing up, they were fighting, and I said, well, lads, that's uncool. They would have jumped less if I hit them with a cattle prod. Very shortly after, when they both settled down and were coding something nice, I went up and said, oh, that's really cool, that's really cool. The neck stretches, the back straightens, we're cool. That one rule and the brand is the majority of the system that makes Coderdojo work. Because the brand includes several centuries of effective teaching using the martial arts model. And then what is the resolution of Coderdojo? The resolution is empowered children, empowered young people. That's how we lead them. So when they come to the dojo, it's very new to them, and we make sure that it's cool to be smart, it's cool to encourage each other, it's cool to have fun. We operate exactly as described, and we leave them, if we do our job well, empowered. Now, when I say we, it's not me, it's not James, it's everyone who comes to a dojo. That's parents, that's mentors, everyone, the kids themselves, young people. Super, super okay for everyone to contribute. When you set that context, it happens. Above all, be cool may sound a little twee, but it works. And the resolutions we've produced, one of the things we've done is make sure that we celebrate every success of every young person that is in the dojo movement. And rather than try and get press ourselves, we've tried to get press for them. We've tried to get them visibility. You have young Harry here. Go on, Harry, stand up. Youngest Mac OS X developer in history, successfully launches his app. How long did it take you to launch your app, Bitsbot? Bit less than a month. That sort of performance is fantastic. Now, we're going to take a step back to before we had any traction, but we had a story. We wanted to teach kids this skill that's empowering. And James and I were two lone nuts, so we needed some followers. Our first follower is actually in the room today, and our second follower too. So our first follower, Michael, Cork Tech, heard this and said, yes, we'll support you. Like that. Got it immediately. That's when we became a movement. Our second follower has provided us with our space for free. And this is not to be underestimated. Seamus? Wave to the nice people. When Seamus and Michael managed to get us a space absolutely for free, the first thing was, James said to me, there's no way that we can do this for free. no one will believe us. And I said, absolutely they will, and they will get huge benefit from it. Don't you worry about that. We have had this space, and I hope we continue to have this space for a long time. And that space has held the movement in place. Every dojo in the world, and now they are all around the world, in fact, Malmo in Sweden is starting in 3 weeks' time. Silicon Valley, GitHub imported us back into the US. Like, how many Irish tech movements get forcefully imported back into Silicon Valley? Not that many. All of them see this as head office of a global movement. Few of them have actually been in there, but most of them see it that way, which I think is very cool. Having that for free has enabled every other location to be for free because it's the context that is set. We don't have to charge the kids anything, nor should we. This is about empowering people to create an ecosystem, a global ecosystem with its heart and core in Ireland. That is deliberate. It's part of the context. Ireland has an enormous competitive advantage that needs to be leveraged right now. And it's funny, it's actually language. You see, every programming language in the world today that's any good is based on English. It's all very well to start up programmers in China, and yes, we're happy to have a Coderdojo there, but they won't be as good. Not until they work a lot harder. Because if you learn English as your primary language, you're just better at cutting code. That is my experience. So all the dojos will teach Globish or English. That's not anything to do with loving the English language, although I do. It's everything to do with what are the languages based on. So Ireland has this short competitive advantage. If we can keep our development community strong and working in English, working with all the different languages, we are going to produce some of the best quality code ever. But we nearly missed the boat. We nearly missed it because the entire generation is playing catch up. That would have been a total disaster. And I can't claim any intelligence here. I didn't spot this thing. This thing was put right in front of my face. And I went, that's nuts. And as soon as you hear it, you realise, hang on a minute, what, you mean we can't have fluent young programmers in this country? No, you can't, because nobody's been teaching them until now. When you see people repeating the action, that's traction. Coderdojo spread from Cork to Dublin to Limerick, all across the country. More and more dojos are opening up everywhere because there's market demand and because the system works. And the system is very light and it's free. And I can tell you, as an internet entrepreneur, free spreads a lot faster than paid for. So if you can have free in your model, it works. Now what is the payoff for Coderdojo, apart from lifting the entire economy, which I'm sure it's going to do? No fault to me, right? It's doing it by itself. The payoff for anyone in a Coderdojo is beyond measure. All of the mentors come out of that room, including myself, going, gee, that was fun. People meet people all the time. If you want to see cutting-edge code fragments and new ideas, nothing like going to a Coderdojo. And all of that occurs because of some simple language that has gained traction. So I invite you all, some of you are mentors, actually, if you mentor a Coderdojo, I think there's a couple here, can you put your hand? Yep, there you go. Note the 3 mentors here. There is a 9-year-old kid, Alan, who comes. He is a better JavaScript developer than anyone I've ever seen. He's 9. There's a kid in Dublin who rang us up and said, oh, I want to come to the Coderdojo. We said, how old are you? He said, 11. We said, okay, great. What would you like to learn? He said, oh, no, I want to come to teach. So we were like, okay, what can you teach? Well, let's see, Objective-C, JavaScript, Ruby. I'm pretty good at Rails. And you say, how long have you been doing this? Oh, I did my first Linux install when I was 6. There's a very important thing here, though. He did a lot of that by himself. There's this myth that if you're not, socially enabled and you're very smart, you should become a geek or a nerd and you should not socialise. And that is a myth. Coderdojo is a highly social experience. That's why it has the dojo component. So not only are we making a leap in terms of coding ability, we're also having people play well with others. And it's also part of being cool. There is nothing more powerful than someone empowered who works in a team. When we look at the movement globally, that is happening. We're seeing teams of kids collaborating. And that, to me, is the most exciting piece. To be able to have people working together, socially capable, and empowered to bend machines to their will, that's a future that I think is worth having. I hope you do too. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Bill. I think that was very inspiring. It's great to get your perspective on it. And I will open the floor to questions. I should have mentioned at the start. So if anyone has any questions for Bill while he's here, or even some of the coders maybe might get a question. So. And I know I'll pass the microphone down just to capture it for video. Once again, it'll be available on YouTube.
Hi, I'm Imogen Burton from UCC. Bill, I must thank you. You came to talk to my students earlier this year. You did a fantastic job inspiring them. I just would like to know if there are any girls who go into Coderdojo.
Look behind you.
Yeah.
Hands up, girls.
All the girls.
So yes. It varies from dojo to dojo. Kinsale Dojo, I think, of all of them at the moment, has the highest ratio. I think nearly 50% girls. I am totally up for every possible person showing up at a dojo. Diversity is strength. It really is. And so, not only do we encourage girls, but with it being free, we encourage people from all walks of life. We're very keen also to start dojos in disadvantaged areas and disadvantaged countries, and we're also looking at other forms of diversity. I was speaking with Desi Farrell from the head of the GPA, the Gaelic Players Association, and we're cooking up Coderdojo at one of the GAA clubs. Because why should it be that you either do sport or computers? Why is that? Where's that written down? As far as James Weldon is a pretty fair skateboarder and a damn good breakdancer as well as a coder. Why should we exclude people because they like to pick up a hurdle on Saturday, and vice versa? Why should coders be excused from be kept away from the sporting field? So we're trying to break down every possible barrier to this so that everyone gets a chance. And I think one of the things that we really like is enabling young people to think, whatever it is that they love to do. By the way, whenever you have a speaker and at the end they say, is there any questions? You should put your hand up really fast for 3 reasons. The first reason is you get to say your name to everybody else. The second reason is you get to have your question answered. And the third reason is the speaker loves you because if they've just presented and they say, hey, any questions? And all you hear is crickets chirping, that's really demoralising. Hang on, we've got to give you the microphone, I think.
Would it be possible to organise computers, second-hand computers, and collect them in the dojo? I have a friend in Kosovo, he's a junior review diplomat, he's trying to start a dojo for the whole community. If anyone from my game or anyone else here or Cork Airport that's a start, if they could bring computers next Saturday to the dojo, maybe I'm pushing all this year, but if they could bring them in, I could get them shipped over. I'd pay for shipping over.
So the question was, can we get some second-hand computers donated to the dojo to go where?
Well, my friend is in Kosovo.
Into Kosovo. Excellent. Excellent. Sorry, I couldn't hear that. So, yeah. Yeah. Why not? I mean, yep, sure. I mean, if we can get 5 computers, you'll ship them across to Kosovo to open the dojo there. It's fantastic. So if anyone has some spare second-hand computers, bring them along. And even if we don't ship them, you know, there are plenty of kids who don't actually have access to computers, so we're always looking for extras. Other questions?
Yeah, and Michael off the CIT. In terms of the sort of age profile of the kids who participate,
Yep.
it seems to me that there's going to be great interest, certainly for people into their teens. We're seeing a lot of interest at the moment from people in conversion programs, people who have qualified, say in areas that are non-IT areas, and want to convert over into IT. Is there some possibility that Coderdojo could move into that space as well?
Yeah, I think if we had enough kids to inspire the adults, that it would work really well. I notice a lot of parents sort of enthusiastically watching over their children's shoulders and participating. I would personally love to see a Coderdojo for older age groups. I mean, we're at the moment it's sort of 7 to 20, and I've seen kids as young as 5 hopping into it and going for it. So, you know, there is no actual hard limit. We actually only have one rule, as I said. It's, you know, it doesn't specify age. I could see if we could get an appropriate space that could be really cool. Bear in mind that Coderdojo's pedagogy is childhood learning, so there's a lot of curiosity in kids that in adults, as their brains have been pruned, they have less of. So I'm quite serious when I say we probably need a few kids in there to sort of get the creative juices flowing. But yeah, absolutely up for it. It would be a different design, but I'm open to help design that. There was another question. Yeah.
Hi, my name is John from Smarttech. I'm just wondering, I have 3 young kids. What ages do you take them from, and when is it, and kind of how for me to bring them to you now?
Okay, so the Mahn Point Dojo is currently open between 12 and 3 every Saturday. We say the minimum age is 7, but as I said, I've had kids as young as 5 come and enjoy it. It's very important that they enjoy it. And if they come and they don't enjoy it, don't bring them back. Wait until they do. Some parents want their kids to get into this too soon, others too late. It's really a matter of being free about it. Now, my desire is to actually open this dojo during the week between about 4 and 7 on weekdays, and so I'm actually at the moment looking for mentors to come and open the dojo at 4 on a Thursday and to run between 4 and 7. And we want to continue that, and we want to build it out because we have such an interesting crowd and such an interesting network that I think there could be some amazing software developments that come out of this. I already have had people approach me saying, actually 2 Russian gentlemen came up, and said to me one Saturday morning, we want to see programs, literally. I'm like, why? We want to hire them. Most of them are a bit young for that. Kids are smart too. Look, there's actually a law against that. So yes, we want to keep this open and have more of that ecosystem coming around. So for the moment, it's Saturday here. In Kinsale, it's on a Friday night. And at Blackrock, it's on a Sunday afternoon. But Blackrock Castle Observatory's dojo is very small. So you really have to book well in advance. I think the waiting list for the Science Gallery in Dublin is about 250 kids long. And they have a booking system. And every week the booking system opens. And 1 minute later, all of the slots are taken. Can you spell script T? They're getting quite popular. I would hope that we'll be opening more than one in Cork, as well as keeping this one open more days. We haven't even approached half the local schools in this catchment area, so I know there are a lot of kids that haven't heard about it yet. More questions? Actually, Colin, you have a question.
You know, for the coders that are and have been going for a while and are now teaching,
Yes.
could there be another day for them to go in and learn more advanced
Do
stuff?
more advanced stuff. Absolutely, that's one of the plans. So yes, I agree. We want the kids who are more advanced to have actually another level. Sorry.
Hi, Ed Crosby.
Yes, sir.
There was talk a couple of years or so ago about this is getting into the realm of Coderdojo, because I don't know what the format of the classes are.
Well, there are no classes per se.
But you know, one of the things about software is if you want to be an engineer, a structural engineer, you can look at the Golden Gate Bridge, right? And you can see how that's done. How have you any ideas as to how to, some of the, beyond normal syntax, and the way to use a programming language in terms of its vocabulary, but also in terms of its syntax? Do you kind of embrace kind of bigger structures? I mean, if you look at things like some of the more complicated artifacts, I mean, have you thought about how those kind of things will be presented in this kind of form?
Again, no classes, not much in the way of presentation. We do have a few mentors who present. One of them, Mary, is probably the best database expert I've ever seen, and she does database architectures, and it's really what the kids are interested in. So when they're thinking about problems, they're thinking about them from the point of view of whatever it is they're working on at the time. We do have mentors who come in and actually try and inspire them into a particular direction, look at bigger architectures. It depends also on the language that they're interested in. So in Cork, some of the kids are now starting to learn Ruby. In Dublin, there's a whole Python team. It just depends on where they're at, and there are a few cells or clusters in various dojos who are learning more advanced C. So it really depends on where they're at and what they want to pull out as to looking at bigger architectures. And I agree with you. There are some beautiful architectures out there that they can have access to. One of the nice things about it, of course, is that we're partnered with GitHub. So GitHub is one of the biggest code repositories, and so they have access to a lot of different, already pre-constructed architectures, which is cool.
Sorry, and a line point to that is there much cooperation between the dojos in terms of sharing things?
Yeah, actually there is. We have some very lively online forums. If you become a mentor, you get access, you can access various of the online forums, and so there's a lot of material being passed back and forth. As the dojos mature, they tend to get more bonded into the whole network. So they tend to start a little isolated, and it takes a while to get them up to the point where they are overall ready for whatever it is beyond, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Other questions? At the back?
And I just like to bring you back to something you said at the very beginning, because I'm a Dojo mom, so thank you.
Marcella is an awesome Dojo mom.
My daughter, Dolly, is 9, and she's been coming to the Dojo since we acted on our New Year's resolution to get to that 20-year club. That sounds really cool. But what you said at the beginning kind of stuck with me, though, because that's why we go. My daughter probably isn't going to be an Uber geek. She's a regular kid who I was seeing turn into a user of programs without any understanding of the background or the workings. So I said to her, September-ish maybe, there's this cool thing. Wouldn't you like to learn how to make a game like Moshi Monsters or that Scratch thing we were looking at? Wouldn't you like to make your own web page or do more of that animation? She said, yeah, that sounds good. So maybe could you comment more on that about kids as users of technology? How the Dojo is actually for everybody.
Absolutely. There is something about being able to use Lego as opposed to a Barbie doll. Barbie doll is a creative thing, and it can be very creative and interesting. But Lego is a logical thing. There's a constructive logic to it. And I think all brains are able to use all of these techniques. And so there's an enormous missing for me when all you do is learn how to use computers. and you don't learn how to construct or create with them. You don't learn the logic behind them. We have this thing, we call it the class moment. And all we do is we put up a text editor and we say, you know, put in the tag, we teach them a tag HTML and a tag body, and then we say, type whatever you like, and then put in /body and then /HTML, and then save it to your desktop. Very simplest possible program, which is an HTML website. No ifs, thens, nothing, no decision, just the simplest thing. We get them to save it to their desktop, and then we say, now double click on that file you just created, and it opens in a web browser. And I would say about 90% of the kids I see do that in Ireland. You go, look, you've just created your first web page. They've never done this before. This is the basic stuff for us, and they've never done it. And they look at it and they go, oh, that's class. Class moment. Just that tiny inkling that you can look behind the curtain and see this geek pedaling really fast in Oz that is HTML, and you can actually look behind the magic and go, wow, I can actually do that. Just that inkling with a computer is enormously empowering. And I think that opens up a kind of logical process that is applicable to any career. It's applicable to any human being in this world, because computers ain't going away. If they do go away, we're probably going to go away pretty fast with them. So, you know, just breaking down that. And the other thing is, you know, I've seen it myself, and Harry's mum Elaine was telling me earlier, you know, sometimes you see a kid playing a video game, and they're just a user, and the game is manipulating them, and they're getting frustrated because they're being dominated by the game. You know, you say, okay, well, they're just playing a game, how harmful can that be? But, you know, some games are designed to really absolutely maximize their time of gameplay. That's their business model. I'm not complaining about that, but if you only get that, that's not a pathway to higher thought. And that is a missing as well. So if you know how to program, you understand what went into the game, you can create your own. And I think that actual creation is just amazing. More questions? Yep.
I am Trisha O'Connor from Hayes IT Recruitment. You mentioned that at the moment, you know, a person's first experience of coding is when they go to college, and as part of that, they go on, for example, placement. Is it something that you've explored that perhaps for Dojo kids will maybe go to some of the IT companies in Cork, for example, and experience what the end product looks like?
Absolutely, I would love to do that. In Dublin, I think there is a kind of a queue of IT people just sort of waiting. Yeah, are they ready yet? You know, I got an email from my business partner, Sean O'Sullivan, because he'd met Alan, this uber Java programmer, who's 9, as I said. And you know, he asked his HR people, you know, when could he hire him? And they said, not until he's 15. And he goes, I have to wait 6 years! Not possible! So yeah, we would love to get work experience placements. We need more mentors, we need more supporters, you know, we need more of everything, because we need more dojos, frankly. There are more than enough kids to service, you know, 10 dojos in Cork. And these are self-replicating. You can go onto coderdojo.com, you can click on Start Up Dojo, and you can have a dojo up and running in your office for all the kids that are associated with your business within 48 hours. And you know, we will give you support, but you won't need a lot. It's very, 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 very much fun. Other questions? Yep.
Have you considered, my name is Tim O'Riordan from the Projects Office in UCC, have you considered approaching the universities? You know, at weekends, a lot of those buildings are empty, full of computer labs, etc. And surely there must be an opportunity there to use those resources. Essentially, I don't know, I was involved in the Western Gateway building. We've 1,500 computer spaces in that building alone. At weekends, they're switched out, switched off.
Yeah, we've also talked to quite a few schools. Now, there is a bit of a conflict in one respect. Because we are resolutely in favour of a child-led learning approach, we do have our one rule, which is above all be cool. And so on a couple of schools that we've met, they've presented us with a computer room where all the computers are lined up in rows and there's a lectern, and it just, you know, especially newbies walking into that environment just sort of go, oh, this is not cool, and leave. So the space is up there is perfect, it's very informal, you know, it just changes the attitude when you walk into an informal space. So I totally and utterly we've spoken to various universities and schools, and a few of them have been appropriate. So the Science Gallery at Trinity is our signature location in Dublin. It is perfect. It's very informal, you know, it's a lot of fun. There's all sorts of displays and other things to get them interested as well. DCU have also got a space that they're putting together. But it's not us driving this. It's not a push model. I would actually throw it back to you and say, would you like a Coderdojo there? Absolutely happy to support you. Go for it. You know, it's more that model. It's a pull model. So yeah, we're totally open. We're not against it. Just make sure that wherever the space is, it's kind of interesting and cool. One of the things I love about this space is that it's also an office environment. And you know, a lot of kids are curious about office environments. That's where mummy and daddy go, you know, during the day. What do they do? And we're probably breaking the mold there, but if they go and work at Google or Facebook, they'll have the same sort of fun environment.
Just one other question in relation to, say, kids, for example, that don't have laptops or computers. Have you approached any of the computer companies about getting stock computers that would facilitate disadvantaged kids, etc., who might be able to afford
Okay, so this may sound a little odd, but I'm not a big proponent of charity. So I don't necessarily, like a few second-hand computers is great, but even though this is free, it's not charitable per se. It's just more fun than that. So while we do have some disadvantaged kids, we would encourage them to share laptops with other kids that have them over just handing out laptops all the time. What I would dearly love, and I've asked several hardware manufacturers, and they all said no so far, which is a pain. But what I'd love is for somebody to take the risk and offer a hire purchase program so that kids could buy netbooks out of their pocket money. Because to me, that's a no-brainer, right? You still keep the market, you still make your money, you teach the kids something responsible. They'll look after the thing if they pay for it, I promise you that. Yep.
You know, the Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, you know, Raspberry Pis are kind of cool too, but you know, there's something about a laptop that you can take to and from that I think is really useful. Raspberry Pis are going to be a little bit harder for kids to find screens to plug in and stuff, but you know, we'll support that too. But something that's low cost and that can fit within a pocket money budget, you know, to me that would be really great. So if you know someone who's got hardware, the other thing is, of course, I'd love Apple to support us with that sort of thing because Apple happens to be a rather good platform for learning to code games on and apps on. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, one thing with the Coderdojo teaching environment, could that be applied, that kind of environment be applied to other versions of types of science, let's say zoology, etc., etc.?
I'm glad you asked that. Could Coderdojo's model be applied to other things? Actually, I recently discovered there are a couple of universities that are starting up in the US that apply a similar model to Coderdojo to all sorts of things. I know that I could easily create a school for entrepreneurship out of the Coderdojo model, and I can see that is actually another possible revolutionary thing. Because child-led learning, I don't know if you've watched, one of the things you should watch is Sir Ken Robinson's RSA Animate talk about models of education. Also, David Putnam's talks about that. There's a fantastic book by a guy called Ivan Ivanovich called Deschooling Society. There's also a very interesting thing on that. But I think absolutely, you could apply this model to all sorts of things. And I'd probably like to see that happen, but for the moment, I've got enough time to spend on pedagogy. Yes?
Last question again, sorry. If you wanted to be a mentor or whatever the phrase is there a kind of a buddy system in operation? Or?
Absolutely. Come on down. You'll be put to work immediately.
Sorry, you just want to mention the Garda clearance is the first thing you
Oh yeah, actually that's an interesting one. We do ask people to fill out Garda clearance forms, but not all dojos do. We do here in Cork mostly. It's an interesting thing. When I actually looked up the law, there is actually no law that states that you have to fill out Garda clearance forms. And actually what you get back from the Garda when you've filled out the clearance form is actually completely useless. So it would be really good if they would actually go the next step and make those Garda clearance forms actually mean something. But right now they're kind of not very good protection. I personally feel that it's much better protection to have a ton of parents in the room. So we say parents have to stay. If your child is 12 and under, you ain't going anywhere. And if you do leave your child, if they're 13 and over, we tell the parents that if you're late coming back, you're going to find a lonely, wet child in the car park. So don't be late. And so far we've never had that problem because we've been very specific. But I still do ask people to fill out Garda certs here. But again, it's like I was kind of shocked, looking up the child protection laws. What child protection laws? It's just not there. So there's this myth about, everyone has to fill out the Garda cert. And we did, and we do it. But it doesn't actually work well. And I think that should change. Because personally speaking, I've got 3 kids myself, I would like to make sure that if they go into something and people imagine that the Garda cert is some form of protection, that it really was. I don't know Guardian in the audience are going to arrest me. Last question, anyone? No? Good? All right.
Hi, my name is Chris from Pines Games. Just a thought, will you ever be looking for someone to come to you and say, look, I've got a problem, as a project for the builders to solve? Would that be of interest?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been mooted a few times in various dojos that we should work on charitable projects and put up websites and things. I think it would have to be an inspiring thing. The kids have to get into it. If it's boring, it's not going to fly. But we're totally open. If you come in with a problem, as long as it's not commercial, so we don't break the one set of laws that do apply, which is child labour laws.
It's just to provide the challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
But to focus on problem solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure it's interesting. Count it in interesting terms. Language is important, as I made clear before. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Oh. There was one last question. Go on. You're late.
I did my first session this week helping out, and it was really, really great, really rewarding, and I wanted to thank you for that. But I was wondering, you talked about work placement for children that obviously they can't join the workforce until they're of a certain age. But if they, for instance, I know there was a young guy, 12 years old, created a Facebook app and so on. I'm sorry if it's already been brought up because it was a bit late. But is it possible to sort of help kids actually produce their own projects to an actual, bring them actually to market?
Absolutely, it's already happened, actually more than once. We do encourage them to become entrepreneurial and to sell their apps, because they can work for themselves. They just can't work for me, damn it. Yep, no worries, thanks.
Thank you, Bill. Just to let everyone know that Cork Dojo is actually open this evening, and some of the quarters will be there shortly if anyone wants to visit. Otherwise, we'll see you all there on Saturday, 12 o'clock, with your winter assistance and help. Just a few things to wrap up. The next Tech Tuesday is in April. It's Big Fish Games. It's on the Western Gateway building, and Big Fish are a casual games company, software provider here, and they're going to introduce us to the casual games industry. So that's in the Western Gateway on the 3rd of April, and I welcome you to come along, and that's where the supply.ie is based as well, so you can collect your coffee beforehand. Just to finish up, I'd like to thank IBM, Smarttech, National Software Centre, and most importantly, Bill Liao. Thank you.